If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 5 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025. I am predicting that on Saturday night, on August 30th, 2025, a dirty bomb or 2 dirty bombs or a suitcase nuke will explode in New York City, probably in Times Square, and then there will be a large-scale evacuation from Manhattan over the East River into Queens and Brooklyn throughout the night into August 31st, 2025. I am predicting that on September 4th, 2025, a dirty bomb will explode in Penn Station in Manhattan, New York City. It is also predicted that a dirty bomb will explode in Grand Central Station in Manhattan in New York City on this same date, September 4th, 2025. It is also possible that August 30th and 31st will be the date of a prophetic sign that will point to September 4th. In other words, what I have just described is a prediction for both of these dates, August 30th and September 4th, for dirty bombs, but I could be misinterpreting God's signs, and it could be that it will only be on September 4th. I am predicting that Tehran, Iran, will be nuked by the US or possibly Israel on September 7th, 2025. This will obviously be in response to the dirty bombs that are predicted to explode in New York City. I am predicting that Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom will die in a plane crash in St. Louis as they are traveling from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles in Busch Stadium in St. Louis on August 2nd, 2028. This will be during the predicted presidential campaign of Gavin Newsom. As a result of Gavin Newsom's death, Michelle Obama will become the Democrat Party's presidential nomination. Michelle Obama will, quote unquote, win the election over J.D. Vance on November 7th, 2028, and will become the president on January 20th, 2029. Donald Trump is predicted to run as J.D. Vance's vice president. This scheme to overcome the 22nd Amendment will backfire and inspire Michelle Obama and Barack Obama to run on the ticket with Barack Obama as Michelle Obama's vice president. She will then step down and Barack Obama will become the president again. It is predicted that there will be a massive Mary apparition on the beach in Rio, Brazil on April 24th, 2029. It is now recognized that there will be 2 massive Mary apparitions on the beach in Rio. The first of the 2 is predicted to be on March 22nd, 2029. These predicted Mary apparitions will not be secretive. They will be mainstream, worldwide news. Like all Mary apparitions in history, including at Lourdes, Guadalupe, and Fatima, this Mary apparition will be a demon pretending to be Mary. It is predicted that on April 26th, 2029, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to the 5th trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens. The demons pretending to be aliens will claim to be here to help us with our nuclear weapons. It is predicted that Pope Francis will be resurrected from the grave on April 26th, 2029, and it is possible that on this day, Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing which is the mark of the Antichrist and 5G frequencies. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. The resurrection rapture event will occur on Pentecost on May 27th, 2029. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be at the end of 2031. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Alright, welcome. This video is predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025. This video, as you can see, or rather this email, was composed on July 11th. As we can see here, this documents that this prediction is being made ahead of time. The prediction that Paul Simon would die on April 1st, 2025 has been known since November of 2024. However, I think that given the information that I will be presenting for how this prediction is known in advance, that July 11th, in other words, 22 days, will be sufficient to assuage the skeptic from concluding that I must have made a prediction for every day leading up to August 1st and finally got lucky. That would be completely irrational, because for one thing, it would be ludicrous for someone to do such a thing. Someone would have to be a crazy person, and also it would be irrational based on the information that I'll be providing, which is profound. And if you don't think it's profound, you are a fool. Okay? And so that will prove that this prediction is in fact a prediction. And I'm not making a video for every single date in the calendar, hoping that Paul Simon will someday die soon. That's ridiculous. All right. Also, the post date of the video proves the prediction is being made ahead of time. Now, in this video, I will also present the main prophetic reason for Jeffrey Epstein and the story of Jeffrey Epstein. In other words, what I'll be explaining is how God has incorporated Jeffrey Epstein into his true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, which will be proven to be God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections when the prediction comes to pass. And it is through these things like Jeffrey Epstein and this ongoing story that God is able to tell stories through his big picture of signs. Why does he do this? In order to convey essential, extremely important information and knowledge that everyone needs to know. Now, Jeffrey Epstein is very, very important in the present day culture and the truth about what is really going on and has been really going on in America for a very, very long time. The Jeffrey Epstein story doesn't start with Jeffrey Epstein. It goes back to the, arguably, even before, but the early 20th century. And the beginning of the intelligence agencies and community, which use as their currency secrets. And secrets beget corruption. That's by definition how it works. And so Jeffrey Epstein is a very interesting thing that God has used to tell all of the truth about what's really going on. Jeffrey Epstein is, if you will, a lightning rod. He's really simply a conduit for God to convey all of the truth about the so-called deep state and what is really going on behind the scenes of the government and the government of the government, the double government in America and around the world. Okay? And so, Jeffrey Epstein and his ties to organized crime is part of this evolution of organized crime that integrated into the intelligence agencies. Some people naively, very foolishly, these people that do not know very much about what is going on in general, think that organized crime and the mafia disappeared a few decades ago. No. It just morphed into a different form of crime and a different reality which embedded itself in the government and the intelligence agencies. Right? Now, part of this story, although it goes all the way back to John F. President Kennedy, who was assassinated by the CIA through the use of their mafia, corruption, organized crime tentacles. It's all part of this. Okay, so that's pretty basic for most people. And what I'm going to do, though, is in this video, prove through the prediction of Paul Simon's death that everything that I'll be saying about Jeffrey Epstein and the deep state, etc., is true. And make no mistake. The reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction, the reason for this prediction that is from God, the reason for this video, the reason for this video channel is to prove the controversial things that I will be saying. And I know far better than you the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God and this video. And God's use of Jeffrey Epstein here, for example. Now, that said, I'm not an expert. I don't have the time to become an expert on Jeffrey Epstein, but what I, if you will, what I believe to be the case, and it's not about me, but my gift, if you will, is to assimilate things into a big picture, which is why God has given me the task of explaining his true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections. I am what you would call a big picture thinker. And so I don't have the details for you, but I'll do my best with what I understand. All right? And it'll be up to you then to look into things further if you are so interested in things like Jeffrey Epstein and the truth about him, and also the ties between the mafia, the present day form of organized crime, and the intelligence agencies, and the double government that's behind the government we see. Now, let's begin. The best way to do this is to start by reading what I wrote to some friends here, a brief summary of things. So, Jeffrey Epstein is in the news these days, and I'm talking about July 11th here. And this is shortly before the predicted death of Paul Simon on August 1st, 2025. It is believed this is for very good reason. Epstein is symbolic of the things, right? If you're watching the video, you can see what my cursor is pointing to, but you know what I'm talking about. It's the thing that you can't talk about, and so I won't even say the word. So Epstein is in God's signs. That's God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. Epstein is symbolism, because it's all symbolism. And so Epstein is symbolic of something, and that is the things and the things research and the things industry, right? The industry that begins with a F and ends with a arma and ends with a ceutical, right? Industry. By far the biggest lobbying industry of the US government. It dwarfs the second place industry lobbying dollars, which is the oil industry. In fact, the things industry spends double the amount of the second most spending industry in terms of lobbying. Do you think that there would be no corruption in government if that were the case? Well, if you do, you are naive, because you are also probably naive to the reality that the honest society that we once had, which gives birth to this naivety that it didn't really exist, but was far better than it is today. In other words, there was never a time in American history where there wasn't corruption, but it doesn't compare to today's corruption because of the modern lack of fear of God and Judeo-Christian values. And so that's inevitable. That's very, very basic. Even an atheist can agree to that, whether they believe in a God or not. It's not dependent on that. It's very straightforward. A society that fears God will act better and be a more honest society. And that is what this culture of a fear of God, the Protestant Christian culture, because Catholicism isn't Christianity and didn't produce the same values as Protestantism did, it produced this culture and society of the rule of law and people trusting each other that were strangers, being able to do business with a handshake instead of what we see today, which is constant lawsuits and suing other people, etc. It does, that's part of the degradation, the decay of Western American culture because of the loss of Protestantism. Now, so the answer to the mystery, and so the big story about Epstein that everyone's aware of is, where did his money come from? No one seems to really know. It's a mystery. This is, in other words, a big part of the story, this theme regarding Epstein, this mystery as to where he got his money. Okay, God is using this. So the mystery to how Epstein made his money, for those that know a few things, it's not really a mystery, is that he was a CIA-backed blackmailer, which is a thing that organized crime has been doing for a long time. J. Edgar Hoover, for example, was compromised, the head of the FBI, by organized crime, through blackmailing, through him being blackmailed. And in a sense, J. Edgar Hoover was part of organized crime because of that. And that's, but the relationship goes back even further than that, but that's really the beginning of the FBI, right? And this merger between organized crime and the intelligence, in other words, secretive community and government, because that's their currency. It's all about secrets. That's what it's all about. The intelligence agencies, right? And so secrets breed corruption, which invites the mafia. Anyway, so a big tool that organized crime uses is blackmailing, which is what Epstein did. But he was supported by the CIA. In other words, the CIA was using him as a tool to get accomplished what they wanted to get accomplished. But the agenda for the CIA and organized crime blend with each other. Their goals, their motives, their operations, their agenda mix and overlap and become one and the same in many cases, because the organized crime is embedded in the CIA. And it's not only organized crime, though, that's embedded in the CIA. So is communists. So are communists, the enemies of America. And they have their own agenda too, right? But anyway, and so communists have always, for a long time, used blackmail as well, because communism is corrupt. Communism is atheist religion. And because it's the anti-truth, because the truth is the God of the Bible, it's, in other words, evil. Communism isn't what the secular progressives claim, simply a alternative economic model. That's a bunch of hooey. That's a bunch of malarkey. That's a lie. Communism, furthermore, is dependent on constantly lying. The whole thing is a lie. Look at East Germany. The whole way to get people to conform was to get them to lie. And when they didn't go along with the lies, they were brought in, tortured, blackmailed, whatever, until they confessed the lie. And then they were allowed to go free once you started agreeing with the lies. And so it's all about lies. And the communists and the organized crime, they also control the media, because communists are embedded in the media, and so is the money that's tied to organized crime, because all of the mainstream media is owned by the same, five different or less companies. Less. 95% of the media is owned by essentially the same two companies, because it all goes back to the same two investment companies, which would be BlackRock and Vanguard. Everything is ultimately owned by these two investment companies. All right, and so, including the things industry. It's all owned by, ultimately, BlackRock and Vanguard. Okay, and same with the media. So, back to this story, though, of this use of blackmail and Epstein being an agent that came up through organized crime and was used by the CIA. And so that's who Epstein is. And he used, and the main way that is typically, that blackmail is typically done involves illicit sex. Okay, the devil uses the temptation of sex to compromise people to further his agenda, which is communism and progressivism, because it's the same thing, secular progressive politics even. But ultimately, it serves to bring down the society through corrupting it. Okay, and so that's what. So illicit sex is the main tool that the blackmailing CIA and organized crime uses to compromise people, and Jeffrey Epstein was using this illicit sex to blackmail people in the things industry. Again, this industry that I'm referring to begins with a farm and ends with a pseudocol. Okay, so he was blackmailing people in this things industry in order to obtain profits from the things, profit shares, I should say, and patent rights. So it's well known. This isn't a secret. Jeffrey Epstein is well known for being interested in and connected to the things industry, and that's where his money came from. So that's the mystery. That's the mystery solved. It's a mystery because it's not out in the open, because the way he gets it, because Jeffrey Epstein has nothing to do with medical research. He's a mafia guy. Okay? She has no scientific knowledge. She's not part of that community. So what in the world is Jeffrey Epstein doing wearing a Harvard sweatshirt at Harvard, etc.? I mean, and that's not the proof. It's widely known that Jeffrey Epstein had many connections to the things industry and the things research industry, which is done at the Ivy League schools like Harvard, which is why Jeffrey Epstein was connected to Harvard. And the reason is that he was blackmailing individuals, including researchers and scientists and etc., in order to get the profit shares and patent rights to build his empire of money. Now, so as I wrote here, the thing industry is extremely profitable, right? It's obviously even more profitable, for example, than the oil industry, because they spend twice as much as the oil industry in lobbying Washington, D.C. And so if this thing industry is extremely profitable, guess who else is going to be interested? Organized crime. Organized crime has ties to the industry and lobbying in Washington. I mean, it's very simple, right? A lot of people already know all of what I'm saying, but a lot of people don't, because they're really still on the blue pill. They haven't taken the red pill yet. They haven't woken up. They haven't thought about these things. They haven't thought about the meaning of life. They haven't thought about, for example, why the decay in culture because of the loss of Christianity. They just don't think. They're just kind of like brain dead sheep following the mainstream media and whatever it says, and that's life. There's way more going on. And anyway, it's very simple, though. The truth is that evil exists and there's corruption. And the corruption didn't get less since the 1960s. It got exponentially more corrupt. So the mafia didn't go away in the 60s and 70s. It just got smarter and embedded itself in the government and the things industry. The things industry is run by corrupt organized crime. Do you understand now if you didn't before? That's the truth about life. That's the nature of humanity. People by nature are corrupt. It's the exact opposite of the philosophy and worldview of the left. The left believes, and this is the key, this is the fundamental difference. The left believes that people are basically good, and it is the external society and culture that corrupts them. That's communism for you in a nutshell. And so that's why they are set and determined to fix the external things to make the perfect utopia, to fix the corruption in the culture that corrupts the individual. But the truth is the opposite. That's the satanic view, the opposite to the Christian conservative worldview, which is that people are basically bad and selfish. And it is society and culture that civilizes them. That's why America is, or was, it is pretty much, or turning into now, a third world country, but that's what made it different than the other countries of the world that were corrupt and did things like prosecute ex-presidents and try to put them in jail, for example. Right? That's third worldism. We didn't used to have that because most people understood the truth about the reality of the world, which is that people are basically bad, and it was Christianity that civilized them and produced the culture that we had, past tense. Now, when a flower is cut from its source and put into a vase, it still looks like it is alive for quite a while afterwards. That's the case with American culture and the Western culture. It's a flower that's been cut and has been dying, wilting away, because it's been cut from its source, which is the Bible, and a fear of God. And when that source is cut, people no longer fear God. Now, it's not like people become automatically or arbitrarily violent criminals, but the truth about the human being, even the secular atheists that think that they are a good person and other people are good, no. When it comes down to it, when it comes down to the critical moment to make the decision about whether you do the shady thing and justify it by saying, well, I need to send my kids to school, to the Ivy League schools, or whatever you claim you need the money for, etc., you will do the shady thing unless you fear God. That's the reality, right? And that's the key. That's what it's all about. It's not about people necessarily becoming completely wicked. It's about doing the wrong thing in the moments when it counts. Like if your car scrapes another car in a parking garage, do you leave or do you leave a note on the windshield of the car that you scraped? That sort of thing. That's the determinant. And the person that will do the right thing in those situations is someone that believes in a consequence to them not doing it. That's the truth. Despite what the secular atheists will claim. They're liars. They're not honest with themselves even. All right. So I'm laying down the foundation here in this first paragraph, right? Now, let's get back to what I wrote. For example, it is known that Epstein had connections with people in Harvard University's medical research department, right? That's well known. It's not controversial, okay? It's not conspiracy. That's well known. It is known that he was a thing investor. That's also well known. He was an investor, like, for example, Bill Gates. Bill Gates is an investor of the thing industry. Everyone knows that, right? Or at least he was. Until he knew the right timing to get out. Which also, by the way, he knew the right timing to get in, if you know what I'm talking about. And, okay, and so it is known, it's widely known, that Epstein had a relationship with Bill Gates. And it is known that Bill Gates had this relationship with Epstein because of Epstein's interest in the things. That's why. I mean, that's widely known. If you didn't know that, but you knew that Bill Gates and Epstein had a relationship, why else do you think the relationship started? It wasn't because Epstein just thought Bill Gates might be a cool guy and they should fly their plane together to go hit up some young girls on their island. No. Epstein had an interest in the thing industry along with Bill Gates. They kind of joined forces for a while. On one occasion, Epstein and Gates traveled to Haiti together for the purpose of thing research. The purpose of that trip was thing research in Haiti. Why do they do their research in Haiti? Because they can get away with it. Because of the corruption in Haiti, the government there, it's easy for them to walk in. It's actually literally the poorest country in the world. And they can just easily do what they want to do with their research. They can use the Haitians as their guinea pigs. And so that's why they went together to Haiti. Okay, just for example. Okay. Epstein was murdered on August 10th, 2019. Okay, that's the day he died, and he was murdered. I mean, that's so obvious too, by the way. It's not a conspiracy theory. What's the conspiracy is the hiding of the fact that he wasn't murdered. But anyway, you can even glean this from the Wikipedia page. It's very straightforward, even from reading the Wikipedia page. Maybe they're going to update that soon, but you can clearly see any discerning mind fairly reasonable person will conclude, even from reading the Wikipedia page information, that Epstein was murdered. All right? Anyway, that date was August 10th, 2019, which was exactly 70 weeks before the FDA approved the thing that begins with an MR and ends with a NA, thing for the CVD disease on December 11th, 2020. Why is 70 weeks relevant? It's extremely relevant because in the most central prophecy in the Bible, the period of the end times and the Antichrist and the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing, is symbolized by the 70th week. Okay, if you know that prophecy. But that's the central, most important prophecy in the Bible. And again, the 70th week is all about the end, which includes the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing. And the thing was approved exactly 70 weeks after Epstein died, and Epstein was interested in things and made his money from things. Do you start to understand what I am getting at here? All right? Now, by the way, if you don't know that the thing is the mark of the Antichrist, and you believe that it isn't based on your understanding of Bible prophecy, please know, when this prediction comes to pass, it will prove that you are wrong. And that is the purpose of the prediction from God. And I know far better than you the reason and purpose for this prediction. So, I answer the commonly held objections that people have based on their understanding of Bible prophecy at the end of the snake bite video. So make sure you watch that, because I don't want to repeat myself every time. Okay, it is the mark of the Antichrist, case closed. End of debate. No more discussion at all when the prediction comes to pass. And it is the mark of the Antichrist in its current form. It does not need an additional something to go with it, such as an additional technology or false form of religious worship. For those who are wise, it did come with a false form of religious worship. Secular progressive politics, that is a false religion. Okay, and and the reason why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is that it is judgment for their doctrine, which is another reason why people say that the mark of the Antichrist, the thing, isn't the mark of the Antichrist, because of their belief in dispensationalism and the idea that all quote-unquote Christians will have been raptured prior to the mark of the Antichrist. But that's one of the reasons why the majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist, is that it is in fact judgment for this particular doctrine that Jesus says is the Nicolaitan doctrine. And I explained that in other videos, which Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with those that teach this doctrine and those that have the works that are a product of this doctrine, which is the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians today. This doctrine being sovereign grace, which comes in the package of Calvinism, or free grace or cheap grace, which comes in the package of dispensationalism. So, now, anyway, back to what I was saying. The SpaceX Starship SN9 fell off of its platform in its hangar on this same day. The number 9 in God's signs is the most important number, as from the Bible it symbolizes God's judgment. This happened 2 days after the SN8 exploded, after it came back to make a landing, which is another big news story. The first one exploded on the 9th of the month. The second one fell off of its platform on the 11th of the month, which hinted at 9/11. And not just 9/11 in 2001, but Revelation 9/11, which is the verse that symbolizes the demons emerging from the bottomless pit, coming to demonically possess those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. Okay, so anyway, that's why space X, because in God's signs, the X is symbolic of the mark. And that's why Musk and X, as in Twitter. Okay? Now, anyway, this date, the day that the FDA approved the thing, and Trump gave his speech on the thing, and the SN9 fell off of the platform of the SpaceX, as in X is thing, right? That day, December 11th, 2020, is exactly 242 weeks before Simon's predicted death on August 1st. 242 is the 188th composite number. A composite number is a number that isn't a prime number. H188 in Strong's Hebrew Concordance is the word woe exclamation mark used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. Revelation chapter 9, for example, is the first of the three woes in the book of Revelation. Okay? And so, from this big woe, which was the approval of the mark of the Antichrist, we have this exact number of weeks, which hints at woe. And the number used to hint at woe is 188, and it connects to the date 8-1. And the reason why Paul Simon will die on the date 8-1 is that it will point to Revelation 8:1, where a sound of silence was heard in heaven. Simon's big first hit was Sound of Silence. The mRNA, the thing begins with an MR and ends with an NA, is leading to demonic possession, as I just mentioned. This is described in the fifth trumpet judgment in Revelation chapter 9. Paul Simon's biggest hit was Bridge Over Troubled Water. Bridge Over Troubled Water was Simon and Garfunkel's fifth, as in fifth trumpet, and last album together. A bridge or a door is a metaphor for the description of demons crossing over into the earthly realm in Revelation chapter 9. That's what God is using the bridge and the door in his signs is symbolic of. The day after Epstein died, Paul Simon performed at the Outside Lands Music Festival in San Francisco. Outside Lands hints at the bottomless pit, in other words, the outside realm to the earthly realm, that demons will emerge from through a metaphorical door or over a bridge. The annual festival, the Outside Lands Festival, is held in Golden Gate, as in a gate or a door, because a gate is a door, park, near the Golden Gate Bridge, as in Bridge Over Troubled Water. During Simon's performance at this festival, he mentioned how in the 1960s, while in San Francisco, he decided to knock on the door of the home of the Grateful Dead band members, having never met them before. He said that Bob Weir, a Grateful Dead band member, opened the door, and they have been friends ever since. Upon Simon telling this story at the Outside Lands Festival in the Golden Gate Park, this story about opening a door to the Grateful Dead, Bob Weir entered the stage, and the two sang the first song released from the album Bridge Over Troubled Water. In the description of the fifth trumpet in Revelation, after demons have crossed over the bridge or gone through the door into the earthly realm, the prophecy states that people will seek death for 5 months and not be able to find it. This is hinted at with the name of the band, Grateful Dead. All right, so Revelation chapter 9 is this fifth trumpet. Bridge Over Troubled Water, again, is Simon's fifth album and last album with Garfunkel. Okay, and the demons come through a bridge and a door. Simon talks about a door at this Outside Lands festival, which is obviously a reference to the demonic realm outside of the earthly realm, and the demons coming through it. But then also in this fifth trumpet in Revelation, it speaks of a period of 5 months in which people are seeking death but are unable to find it. In other words, if they do find it, they will be gratefully dead. They'll be grateful. Do you see how clever and artistic God is? So this is why Simon spoke about a door opening when he first visited the Grateful Dead near the Golden Gate Bridge, and then performed from the fifth album with the band member, Bob Weir. Paul Simon and Jeffrey Epstein are both known to be Jewish. That's another connection between Simon and Epstein. The fourth letter of the Hebrew, as in Jewish alphabet, is the symbol for a door. Okay, the fourth letter is the symbol for a door, because Hebrew letters are also symbols for things. By the way, the word door is derived etymologically from the word for the fourth letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which is dalat. From dalat, we get delta and also door in the English language. Simon performed at Outside Lands in Golden Gate Park near the Golden Gate Bridge in Golden Gate Park with the Grateful Dead member exactly 4 times 4 months before the FDA approved the thing. Okay, now again, Epstein died the day before Paul Simon performed with the Grateful Dead band member. And of course, people die from taking the thing, but they will also become demonically possessed and then wish that they were dead, but will be unable to die, which is why they would be gratefully dead. The day after Epstein died, who is Jewish, the Jewish Paul Simon performed at the Outside Lands concert. I already explained how August 10th, 2019 connected with 242 weeks to the date Simon is predicted to die. But August 11th, 2019 is exactly 4 times 4 months. Sorry. 4 times 4 months before the approval of the thing. Epstein died exactly 70 weeks before the approval of the thing, which is in turn 242 weeks before Paul Simon will die. Okay? I made a mistake just a second ago. Again, Epstein died 70 weeks to the thing, and then from the thing, it is 242 weeks. And I explained how that hints at woe, which the fifth trumpet is a woe, and the demonic possession of people. But God is using in his signs the number 4 to symbolize the door through which the demons come through. And we have this performance at the Golden Gate Bridge, and a door is the same thing as a bridge in God's signs, exactly 4 times 4 months before the approval of the thing. Okay, so 4, Golden Gate Bridge, Outside Lands, that's all demonic possession through the door. How does the demonic possession occur? Well, we learn how it occurs 4 times 4 months later through the thing, because of the approval of the thing on that day. Now, this so-called thing, I won't say the actual word, will lead to demonic possession that is described after the door, as in the number 4, is opened to demons in the bottomless pit, as in Outside Lands. On the same day that the FDA approved the thing, Elon Musk, as in X, as in SpaceX, X platform. Oh, you know what? The Starship fell off the platform, and then Elon Musk bought the X platform. Wow, I didn't think of that before. There's probably more to that. Wow. Now, anyway, by the way, Elon Musk bought X for, famously, $44 billion. Why did he buy it for $44 billion? Well, the day that the sale went through was the exact same day that the 44th president delivered a speech at Stanford University about how to counter free speech, how to limit free speech. Because the left claims that having an alternative view and saying information that disagrees with their narrative is dangerous, because that's how communists think, and therefore those that disagree with them need to be silenced. And that's a product of values that are contrary to the values that founded America, which were based in the Bible, and individualism and the rights of the individual, which leftists, today's left, trample on by definition. Collectivism, by definition, tramples on the rights of the individual, and the collectivists deem the elites of the collective regime determine what is proper information for society and what isn't. And what isn't proper is also deemed dangerous. And then they go about convincing the fools that are under them about the danger of what the other people are saying. When the truth is the other people are speaking the truth. And they're buying the lies of the establishment, just like in the Soviet Union. The one media source is what we have today, a one monolithic media source that is the news outlet for the one-party system. The truth is they are the anti-democrats. They are the ones that are anti-democracy. They are the ones that are the danger to democracy today. They are the evil ones. Now, so the FDA approved the thing exactly like I was saying, 4 times 4 months after Paul Simon performed with the Grateful Dead band member, talked about a door, the number 4 equals door. All right. And by the way, God pairs 9 and 44 together to confirm the signs and connections. Because the 44th president was inaugurated in 2009. And this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which he would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9 and 44. And I know this because I have been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 7 years. Now, so that's why the 4 times 4 month to the SN9 platform. That's why one big reason for the SN9 number, to confirm the 4 times 4 months back to the door mention of Simon and the performance of Garfunkel from the first song released from the 5th album, which hints at the 5th trumpet and the demons passing through the door, which will demonically possess people who will then want to seek death, but will not able to find it for 5 months. Hence the 5th album again, and also the name Grateful Dead. Okay, it couldn't be more straightforward and amazing. Now, so again, like I said earlier, the approval of the thing on December 11th, 2020 is exactly 242 weeks before Simon's predicted death on 8/1/2025. 242 is the 188th composite number, and 188 hints at 8/1 in Revelation 8/1. Again, Strong's H188 is the word woe, and it is used in the context in the Bible of extreme judgment from God. And the fifth trumpet judgment is also one of the three woes in the book of Revelation and prophecy. Also, Simon's death on 8:1 will point to Revelation 8:1, as I explained. The sound of silence in heaven is 8:1, Paul Simon's song, Sound of Silence, the first hit that made him big. The day that he told the story of opening a door and then performed with Grateful Dead member in Golden Gate Park, near the Golden Gate Bridge, was the same day as Revelation 8:11 prophetic sign. This Revelation 8:11 sign occurred on August 11th, 2019, the same day that Simon performed, like I just explained. Now, this sign I'm referring to, which has been known since that date, was when 11,000 birds, waterfowl, were found dead due to hail on a lake in a wildlife park in Montana above Yellowstone lava plume. Okay, so the hail is mentioned in Revelation 8:7. Yellowstone is going to erupt, and that's also in Revelation chapter, it'll erupt due to the asteroid hit, which is Revelation 8:11. And so also the birds, the dead birds, polluted the water of the small lake, making it poisonous for the other birds and animals to drink, which died also because of that. Okay, so, and so Yellowstone will erupt after the asteroid named Wormwood, which is mentioned in Revelation 8:11, will hit Earth, and the ash from the volcanic eruption, or eruptions plural, it might not only be Yellowstone, which, by the way, is in the 44th state on the 44th latitudinal line. Okay, the ash will encircle the earth and make fresh water poisonous. That's described in Revelation 8:11. And so that's what was the prophetic sign, because the water became poisonous after the hail fell to earth. Okay, just like when the ash, after it falls onto the fresh water, after the asteroid falls from the sky, just like hail falls from the sky, that's why the dead birds polluted the water and made it undrinkable, which is what's described in Revelation 8:11, after the asteroid hit. So that's just amazing, because as we now know, Paul Simon and his death will be a Revelation chapter 8 sign. But on the same day that he performed with the Grateful Dead member in the Golden Gate Park in Outside Lands Festival was the same day as another Revelation chapter 8 sign. And I can't even think of many others off the top of my head of Revelation 8 signs. There are others, but so this was a really an amazing one to discover at the time. And it was only just a few days ago, actually maybe 2 days ago, that I learned that there was a Paul Simon sign on the same date as this Revelation 8 sign. And it was only in 2024 that I learned that Paul Simon would die on the date 8:1 because of the association with Revelation 8:1. And I didn't know Paul Simon was associated with Revelation 8:1, probably, I think, until maybe late 2023. But this Revelation 8 sign we're talking about here occurred in 2019, 4 years before I learned that Revelation 8:11 was associated with Paul Simon. And I didn't know that Paul Simon was a sign on the same day as this Revelation 8 sign until just now. So, believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, A Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.